Hello, everyone. Can everybody hear me okay? Well, welcome. It is my great pleasure to kick off the first talk of FITC Spotlight. Thank you for coming, taking the time, and hopefully you'll take a lot of new things or maybe confirmations with you at the end of the day. Today, I'd like to talk to you about how customer-facing teams can help in improving the product experience. And I'm going to kick this off by asking you questions. Feel free to shout out if you know the answer. I hope you do. What is the first rule of Fight Club? What was that? Anybody else? That's right. Don't talk about Fight Club. Well, since you know the first rule, you probably know the second rule of Fight Club. Don't talk about Fight Club. Well, when I joined Atlassian, I joined Fight Club. I joined a team, pre-sales team, product advocates, that nobody talked about. We were a small team at a company where the vast majority of our customers purchase using our self-service model. They learn, try, and buy all directly on the website. And so we didn't talk about that much smaller portion that augments this self-service, which is my job as a product advocate. My job as a product advocate was to help people who were considering or trying our products to understand the features and functionalities of that product. And because my team talked to customers every single day, we deeply understood the business needs they had, why they were trying our product, where were they stumbling, what were the pain points they were encountering, and also where were they encountering the aha moments, where were we delighting them. And because we had all of this information at our fingertips, we wanted to share it with our product so they could improve the product for everyone, not only those that talk to us. And sure, we are a data-driven company at Atlassian, so you may think, well, we have a lot of data sets, a lot of insights into the behavior of users. But the data doesn't tell you why. Let me give you an example. When we looked at the length of our trials for our products, when we looked at the data, the behavior, can you still hear me? Perfect. When we looked at the behavior, we noticed that people do purchase within the first couple of days of their trial. And then the curve sharply drops off with every day subsequently of that trial of them purchasing. So immediately you might imagine that the conclusion is the trials are long enough because it only takes a couple of days for people to try and make a decision whether they're going to purchase, whether there's a value for them in this product. However, when my team talked on a daily basis with our potential customers, we quickly discovered that people try and try and try again, frequently with different email addresses from different IP addresses, different browsers, because they really needed to figure out whether this product is the right thing for them. And the trialing simply wasn't long enough. And so by the time they tried multitude of times, they made their decision, and once they were ready to purchase, they would spin up a new trial and purchase right away. And so you see how understanding this qualitative feedback from our potential customers that were becoming customers and the data itself, we needed to merge these two to really understand that full picture. And because my team knew that we were holding the information of why behind this data, we felt it was very important for us to share it. And so we sat down and we painstakingly started putting together report after report. And then when we published it with our product teams, here's what happened. When we got this reaction, when these reports didn't land the way we expected, we knew we had to find a different way. It was just too important. But in order for me to tell you the background behind how we created these reports, what was in them, and then how we ended up in this spot and where we took from there, let me take you back to 2014 when I started at Atlassian. In 2014, when I joined Atlassian, the team of product advocates was a handful, supporting all of our products globally. Let that sink in for a second. Atlassian is a large company with a multitude of products, and we had a handful of product advocates explaining the feature and functionalities across all of our products globally. Let's fast forward 2015, when Tim Granshaw joined our team to lead the product advocates. When Tim joined, he quickly saw the benefit that we add to that self-service model. And he also understood that as a data-driven company, in order to grow our team and prove the value, he's going to need to do so using data. And so the first thing we did is we looked at our sales data, we looked at the conversations that product advocates were having with our potential customers, and we overlapped those two. And we quickly saw, honestly with no surprise, that people who get their questions answered, who get unblocked, convert at a much higher rate than those that go through self-service channels. But quickly, we came to an argument at our organization whether these people are simply more motivated. It was very hard to reach a product advocate. You had to go out of the product, go to the website, scroll way down to the footer. Because we focused on self-service, our contact wasn't as prominent on the website. You found the contact link, then you went to the form. You had to select just the right option to reach just the right people. And then when you submitted this, it said, thank you, we'll get back to you in 24 hours. And then you waited. And then we may have gotten back to you with a question saying, oh, I don't know what you mean. And then you'd wait another 24 hours so we can reply. So the first thing that we did is we needed to surface the contact form a little bit to the top, make it easier to reach us, so we made a dedicated contact form. Now, this still wasn't too easy. Still had to go to the website, find the contact form, submit your question, and wait 24 hours. But at least you didn't have to get just the right option. It was a little bit more obvious. But we wanted to take it further from there and unblock people from contacting us to sort of really understand this value we provide by removing this friction and understand where do we help people when the motivation is not required to be just as high. And so we inserted emails from product advocates into our nurture campaigns. You know, nurture campaigns from any product you've ever signed up for online. In the SaaS environment, you get the thank you for signing up, verify your email, here are steps to get started, and here are more tips on the functionality. What we did is we inserted an email at the beginning of the trial saying, hey, I'm a product advocate. Here's what I do. I help people with features and functionalities. You run into questions, just reply. And so this made the barrier to entry to get your questions answered much easier because you were already in your email, checking these other onboarding emails, making sure that your registration went through, and so you could simply reply. What we noticed from these emails is, again, people who contacted us got their questions answered, were converting at much higher rate. No surprise. But what we also noticed was there was a halo effect. People who merely received this email but did not reply and contact us had sort of this feeling that there's somebody out there should they need help, regardless of whether they need it right now, and they were converting at much higher rate. This proved to be a scalable model for somebody like our company that's focused on self-service. So we didn't need to scale our advocates teams as much. But the third thing we found was that people who noted that we responded quickly And this wasn't a specific time. This was what they perceived as quickly, which was different for different people. These people were also satisfied more than people who didn't perceive us responding quickly, and also convert at a higher rate. Well, since we knew that speed of response was important to our customers, we also introduced a chat channel to support them. And through all of these, what we call product advocate touches, the ability to reach a real human being, we've proven that the product advocate touch was valuable over and over again. And so we got excited that we got the data support behind the value that we provide, and so we'll be able to now drive these insights to product. And so as we did that, we started creating a report after report after report and after report. But our reports became very data-centric. We focused too heavily on the quantitative aspect, and we lost those rich qualitative stories that our customers were experiencing. And this is why these reports didn't land with our product teams. There was just nothing actionable in it for them. So we knew we had to go back and sort of approach this differently. And so in 2017, we knew we had to collaborate more closely with our product teams. Instead of providing what we thought was important at a cadence we thought was the most useful, in the format we thought was good, we need to really ask the product teams, what do you need? When do you need it? And how do you need it delivered? So that you can then go and improve product experience. But as you know, not every story is straightforward, and so we had additional challenges to get through. First of which was our own Fight Club culture. Because we sort of had internally and externally this culture that we don't have a sales team, which we don't. We don't have the traditional sales teams. We have a sort of different flavor of it. A lot of our product teams didn't know we existed. So we needed to become more vocal about what we do and then the value that we bring. And it took a little bit of time. The second challenge was, for us as a global company, the distribution of our teams. Our product teams were primarily located in Sydney, and our sales teams were located in America and Europe. This distance created, additionally, this notion we don't exist because they never saw us. We didn't exist. And so we started flying out there, talking to our product teams and letting them know the value that we can deliver and helping them build products, understand what our users are really experiencing. Third of these challenges was a challenge when we were focusing on the quantitative data. Our data analysts, when they looked at our reports, immediately proclaimed, "This is not statistically significant." And they were right, because we turned something very qualitative into quantitative. And so the volumes, when we showed the number of conversations, just weren't all that high. Although we were having 1,600 conversations a month, our data sets were just much, much, much larger than that. And so when we really stopped thinking about it from the quantitative aspects and started understanding that these are 1,600 conversations, 1,600 insights every single month about how users use our products, that volume and that perception immediately shifted as we shifted our focus from quantitative to qualitative. And last but not least, we weren't really hitting the insights that our product wanted to know. They had a roadmap, they knew what they were going to build, they knew what they had capacity to deliver, but we were talking about completely something else that was just not on their radar, it was just not even possible to deliver. And while that is still important, it wasn't really helpful and we weren't able to action it. And so we needed to get on that same page with product so that we can actually deliver on these insights. And so now that you sort of have the background of where we came from, what were these reports, and the challenges that we needed to overcome, let's look at how did we really design the engagement so that sales can deliver value to our product teams. First off, we partnered with Christoph Capel. He's the principal product manager for Jira Service Desk. And he said this: we're building a cloud product. Our goal is to deliver value to customers as fast as possible. We need a feedback loop to match the speed of our release cycles. It wasn't enough for us to deliver reports quarterly. It was already too late. They already planned the next quarter. They already executed on the current one. We really needed to have a much faster feedback loop to product. And so initially we took a simpler approach in focusing what we deliver by simply talking to our product, deciding on the focus areas. But later on, we got a little more sophisticated and did full 2-day session, not only with our product, but also with marketing and buyer experience teams to really understand what are the insights we're missing. What are the whys behind the data that we don't understand in order for us to build better experiences? And then we put all of those together. So the 3 areas that we initially decided on were competition, expanding the funnel, and evaluator pain points. While we can do all the market research out there to know how we compare to other products feature-wise and price-wise, what we didn't know is how our users perceive that. Is it the same that what we have researched? Are those different value propositions that they're seeing in our product? Or what is really missing? If you know Atlassian, you know that we tend to land to start with a small one product and a small team. And then as teams grow and have more needs, they tend to grow their user base and adopt additional products. And so we wanted to understand how people expand from one product, Jira Software, to this product that we were working with, Jira Service Desk. Why people do that? What is the point at which they decide that it's the right product for them? What are they hoping that this other product is going to deliver in addition to what they're already doing? And the third area was evaluator pains, because Christoph Capel specifically focuses on the onboarding experiences. So we wanted to understand the aha moments in more detail. Where are people getting stuck? What are the paper cuts that they're feeling? And so in order to hone in on these areas, we didn't want to just wait passively and hope that people are going to mention them. We wanted to design experiences that were going to allow us to talk about these areas. And so we went back to email. It has worked really well, both on the quantitative front, delivering higher conversions, but we've seen the conversations that we had. And so we designed a couple of emails. One email was right at the beginning of the trial. It was inserted into the nurture campaign saying, "Hi, you just signed up. I'm a product advocate. Let me know if you need anything." The second one was at the end of the trial. When the user ended a trial and did not end up purchasing, we wanted to understand why. What was missing? What did we not deliver on? One of the important things in this campaign was that it needed to come from a real human being. If it came from no reply address, nobody reads it, it looks like a marketing junk, people just delete it. But if it's a real human being, plain text, signature coming from a real email address, in this case, Marion at Atlassian, and the reply is going to a real human being supported by the rest of the team, we were getting real replies. In order to scale this, we have incorporated something at the bottom of these emails. It is invisible when the email is sent, but it comes to us in a reply, and it's this message ID at the bottom. What it does for us is for every distinct user base and behavior and specific email, we'd have a unique message ID. What this helped us do is when these replies came back into Jira Service Desk, we use automation within it to allow these agents, the product advocates, to understand the context of this reply. Who's the user base? Which email did they reply to? And potentially some behaviors that are necessary for them to understand where they were in their journey. So in this case, at the top you see there is a welcome email for new-to-new customers, lots of internal jargon. And we also know that they did not create a Jira Service Desk project. So this gives context to the product advocate when they're replying, that this user is asking questions before they even created a basic unit to really start experiencing the product. So they can really put those questions in context of how much they might have done in product. The second one is what we call a win-back, which is the email where we follow up saying, hey, your trial expired. What did we miss? In addition to the context, we also provided questions that the product advocates should be asking, inquiring, to really hone in on what's going on with the user and their experience with the product. Where are they getting stuck? And so having this internally provided context for these answers, which looks something like this. This is a real reply. That's why we have lots of blurred out personal information there. But this person replied to our win-back email saying, hi, Marion, because she's a real human being and they want to talk to her. I have mixed feelings after our quick review of the product. They said they had difficulty to motor around. And so we were able to follow up and ask, hey, what was the problem? What were you trying to do? Where were you getting stuck in navigation? They also told us they were not very pleased with the new experience, the new look and feel that we have just rolled out. And they actually reverted to the previous one they were more comfortable with. And then they also told us they were looking for customer relationship management features, CRM, and they didn't really find much of that within the product and how they would be able to use it. They also tried Freshdesk and they went up against similar experience. And now they're on to trialing Zoho. And all of this information and all the follow-up conversation we had was from, hey, I noticed your trial expired. We are here to listen. We want to improve the product. What's going on? And imagine this on a daily basis, getting rich feedback and rich conversations from the users using the product. In addition to this qualitative information, we're also able to now start tagging and categorizing the feedback for reporting so that we can later find just the right pieces of data that we're looking for. So in this case, you see we're using components to categorize. So you see the category complexity because they had trouble navigating. You also see that we added the JSD CRM because they were looking for CRM functionality, and we lost to a competitor. We also noted all of the competitors that they have mentioned. So in the future, if we want to research, what did our potential customers said about Freshdesk? Where are we winning? Where are we losing? We can pull up all of those conversations at once through a simple search. All of this is great, but it's outside of product. It's coming through an email. It may be days after the experience happened. What we wanted to understand even more is the experience in context. And so we embedded chat in product. In order to scale this, we didn't provide it to 100% of users, but we didn't need to. We needed to simply understand for a subset of users how they're doing. In order for me to explain to you why this context was important to us, let me give you sort of two users' experiences as an example. User A signs up for a product, logs in, immediately fires off the chat window and asks, is there a way for me to take email and then convert it into Jira Service Desk ticket? Set that aside, go to user B. User B signs up for a product, logs in, tries to configure several features, browses around, comes back the next day, goes to a page, tries to configure more things, and then fires off chat and says, well, is there a way for me to create a ticket out of an email coming into the system? Same question, but in one case, the user immediately went to the question, which is indicating more that we didn't really showcase this functionality that was critical to them, whether it was in our marketing or took them straight to the important features in the onboarding. In the second case, let's also imagine that that user was in fact on the page where you configure exactly this functionality. The conclusion you will make from that context is this page makes no sense to the user. They're on the page asking about the feature, about what they're currently looking at, right? And so the solutions you would take based on this context to the product to improve it are very, very different. And so the context is absolutely crucial rather than just the verbatims from the user. We took these conversations and we reported on them daily. We created a Confluence page and we're pasting information into these 3 columns about these 3 areas. On a daily basis as a feed, our product would get notified every time the page gets updated, and we could have conversations directly in line. So Christoph Capel would go onto this page and start asking questions. Hey, can you go more and dig deeper into this? Actually, we're currently looking at that problem. What we want to know is A or B. Go back to that user. And so they would train our staff to really dig deeper and ask these follow-up questions. He could also connect other team members saying, oh, I know you're working on this problem. There's an interesting experience here. Maybe you also want to follow up with this user, or you want to look at this conversation in full detail. In addition to these verbatims, as I mentioned, because we were able to tag these conversations, we could then also provide the quantitative aspect. How many conversations we were having, and what were the categories, percentages, what were people asking about the most? So getting sort of back to our roots, but not as a primary purpose, but first leading with the qualitative before we started getting into, okay, how do we prioritize getting back to the quantitative? What are the biggest problems here? And so in summary, the few points that I would want to make on how we sort of approach this is we had to focus. We had to be intentional about the conversations and the feedback that we wanted to provide, rather than providing anything and everything all at once. We needed to engage with the right users at the right time, in the right place, with the right context in order to deliver these insights. We captured all of these conversations in a system of record for both qualitative and quantitative analysis. And then, importantly, we had to report this daily. That feedback loop had to just be faster than we could otherwise provide if we waited till we have enough information to summarize it and deliver it at the end of the quarter. And so really there are 3 takeaways for us as a team and as an organization that I hope you can apply for yourself. We learned that we had to UX internally. This concept doesn't only apply when you're developing a product, but also when you're working with the teams internally. Instead of delivering what we thought was important, we really had to understand what our internal stakeholders needed and wanted and what made sense to them and delivered value. We also saw how data does not tell us why. It is necessary to have both of those pieces, the qualitative and quantitative, together, overlapping to really understand the full picture. And last but not least, probably the dearest to my heart, is your UX teams are a lot larger than you think. It's not just the people with the UX titles. It's not just the designers. It's really anyone interacting with your user base. They all can contribute and deliver insights. So use them. Thank you. I think we have some time for questions. Are there any questions? Go ahead.
Is there any material you'd recommend online to read more about implementing that fast feedback loop?
Sorry, say that again.
Is there any information online that you'd recommend to get more in depth about the fast feedback loop?
Is there any material online that I would recommend? You know, I think there are bits and pieces here and there. I personally struggle to see and find any structured programs around this, and this is why it's so interesting to me. Everybody's dabbling in this from my experience, and if somebody knows somebody who's doing this in a structured program way, I want to absolutely talk to you and learn from you. So really, there was a lot of trial and error, understanding our organization and how is this going to work for us. I think the summary was really some of these things is really UX internally. You can't combine these two sort of polar opposites. People in product are used to sales coming in and asking, hey, you really need to deliver this feature because I can't make the sale, right? And if you want to turn that relationship around, it's really about understanding how you can help product. So I don't know of any resources. If you find out, please let me know. There are bits and pieces here and there that I've been sort of trying to put together to make sense of it and make more structured program around it. Let's say, I'll come back to you. I think there was a question.
Yeah. So you showed the conference page with like a bunch of technical stuff. So we kind of have the same at a less scale, and everybody absolutely terrified with that. It's just like a bunch of text, which really, really hard to deal with. So how does it work in your company? Like, it just looks like every day you have a lot of conversations, and you just put them into this conference page. It's just, I don't know. How do you use it?
Yeah, so the question was, how do we scale this crazy amount of information, putting it just in plain text on a page? The great question, and that's something that we thought about a lot. I don't know that I have a lot of answers, but I have some answers. One thing why I personally very much like putting it on Confluence page or anywhere where you can collaborate on this content is that you can highlight a specific word, like, notice what this person said, right? So that's sort of the first piece, and that's where it's daily. You can collaborate on the content. But really what we did find is that at certain intervals, you do need to summarize this feedback. The best people to do this are the people on the ground or somebody helping them because they understand these conversations. They know where users are coming from. They may be mentioning tram lines, but I know what they really mean is swim lanes, right? They have the translation to these conversations that's necessary. So we started to produce sort of ongoing reports at faster pace. We're also trialing a way of doing this directly in the system since we have these categories and playing around, trying to figure out how can we develop these categories with our product teams so that when we have all the same understanding of these categories, they can simply pull them up and search them as needed. And so we're still playing around how do we scale this. That's sort of where we are at right now. It's not a perfect system. Again, I'm looking for anybody who's maybe further along that's willing to share. Any other questions? Yes.
You previously mentioned that when you did your first iteration of the reports, it was really data focused. You faced resistance from your product teams. So after you had the conversations with the product teams of what they were looking for, what kind of feedback did you get from them?
Yeah, so the question was, initially we got a lot of resistance because we turned our reports into sort of these quantitative reports. And then once we had conversations and kind of synced in with the product teams, what was the sort of feedback? So this is important that we started with a specific stakeholder that understood how he and his team and his product can really benefit from getting this feedback directly from the users on a regular basis. So we started with somebody who was already bought in. We then sort of on daily basis, sort of figured out what's working, what's not working, how can we adjust. What we ended up with is in the first quarter running, we actually shipped a product change based on this feedback every single sprint. So every 2 weeks, we had a change to a product, smaller or larger, coming out that was directly derived from this feedback. And so we were primarily connecting a lot of these feedback points and insights to a stream of work that was either already happening or things that were thought of, but there was just not enough understanding of where to go from there, or there were one-off paper cuts. An example was one of the users, and this is the type of stuff that may not come up from every single user because it's a paper cut, it's maybe not core, but it's definitely hurting their experience. In Jira Software, which is based on the Jira platform, just like Jira Service Desk, but they're two separate products. In Jira Software, each tab, when it was open, it would tell you Jira Software and the project name. In Jira Service Desk, it said Jira Service Desk, Jira Service Desk, Jira Service Desk. And project managers who were working in million tabs, because none of us have ever done that, just really couldn't figure out what's going on and how to get back to the tabs as they were looking throughout the day at these multiple projects they were running. And so we looked at it, it was like, yeah, why do our tabs don't have proper names? We scrapped that code from Jira Software, put it in Jira Service Desk, and hopefully made the experience a lot easier for everybody, even those people that maybe didn't bother to complain about the tabs, but it's an obvious change. We also made a change that was a lot deeper that we didn't see from the data, where we had sort of a scary warning when people added users in their trial saying, hey, it's going to cost you this much. And that came from a good place because we were wanting to be very transparent and let people know that there are no hidden costs. Here's exactly what you're getting yourself into. Here's how much these users cost. We had some changes in the platform that sort of made these warnings pop up much more frequently. And we were only able to detect it through these conversations because there was no real error message. There was nothing happening in the behavior that would suggest that there's a problem. But people were coming in worried saying, hey, I thought I was still in a trial. Am I okay? Can you make sure that everything's fine? And so we would reassure them, and that told us that we really need to change the way the wording comes up, still achieve the transparency we wanted, but also not scare our users. Does that answer your question? Yes.
Going back a bit to what I was mentioning, you mentioned having insights in sort of like a structured way, right? If anyone new understood that, right? So when you spoke about you're looking for something that's more like someone's composed like a format, almost like a template, in which you can then almost look at, understand, and be able to apply to different businesses. And that's what you thought would be really valuable to you, is having be able to see what that template looks like. Do I understand correctly?
I think it's both. I don't know that, so the question was that whether I was looking, when I was saying, hey, anybody knows of anything, let me know, whether I was looking for a specifically template that can be applied to multiple businesses. I think it's that, but I don't think one template, that there's no such a thing as one size fits all. I think it's more about the way people drive sort of this change in the UX field and product, and the relationship between what's sort of more linear, right? Like people design the product and people develop the product and then people sell the product and people support the product and then it ends. How do you take that and make it a never-ending loop to where the people at the end of that train are then contributing to really start the new development and the new process? And so it's more of a structured program, and maybe changing culture and thinking of how this should really work, more so than template per se. Do you use Page or do you use something else?
So it's really linking sort of like product, piece of product, and with UX, and creating almost this ecosystem that's almost never ending, like almost like this infinity loop.
Exactly. Yeah, creating a loop across all of the teams rather than being linear, right? Throwing back sort of the way Agile and Waterfall, right? Like there's a start and the end. You could sort of think of it as sort of the Agile way of developing product, not only in terms of what you do as engineers, but also how do you work as a business? How is everything interconnected and coming back to itself? I think we have time for maybe one more question, if anybody has one. Go ahead.
I'm not very familiar with your products outside of Jira, so I'm just curious. You showcased the example where you took incoming feedback and you had automated some sort of system to look for keywords, words, and to categorize the emails. Is that something that your support tools support, or is that something that you did internally?
No, actually, so this is, the question was, how did we use Jira and our tools to automatically categorize the feedback. I will say we're actually not automatically categorizing that feedback. This is all done by people understanding, because like I said, sometimes people say tram lines, but they actually mean swim lanes, which no system could ever understand that somebody, messed up what the terminology is. But what we were doing and what we are doing automatically is through these message IDs, we're providing context to the people who are having these conversations. So imagine if you have, for one product, you might be sending one email if people are immediately creating a project within Jira Service Desk, but then two people who have signed up but didn't log in, and then different kind of email behaviorally if they got into the project, created project, but then abandoned, people who have purchased versus didn't purchase, right? It's really hard for somebody on the other end to go, which product, which behavior, what's going on here? How do I properly respond in context? So people don't feel dumb, I don't feel dumb, and I'm actually being helpful. So that is the part we're automating by providing that context back on the reply came from a user that was in this point to this email so that they can more intelligently help them. But yes, that is available. It's called the automation tool. You can configure it in a million ways. We're doing it based on searching for that unique text string that then automates and does certain processes, but we only use it internally. Well, come talk to me at the Mixer if you have additional questions, and hope you got good stuff out of it. And thank you for listening.